This is a Mugo Mops, grown in Oregon at the Isley Brothers. Make sure I hold that steady enough you can read it. The Isley Brothers Nursery. You should be able to pick up a tree like this almost anywhere. And it says they're a product of Oregon, USA. I got 4 or 5 of these just the other day. I just wanted to show you the way most Mugos come. This is a way that you're going to mostly encounter them. And it's difficult to make a bonsai out of a tree like this if you think in terms of a bonsai being one single trunk. That's an argument I hear all the time. Well, we can't find Mugos with single trunks. And it's a legitimate argument because most of the time you cannot. You have to make them. A lot of times you have to take a tree with possibilities. I have a wide trunk down at the base, which I don't even know whether this one does yet. Have a wide trunk down at the base and then try to pick a branch or 2 out of that base and grow it up into single trunk. You've seen a lot of pictures on the internet of my trees, and most of them were designed that way. But of late, I've been getting into growing trees and exploring the realm of growing these into what they call crumholz. That's Krumholz. It's a botanical definition of a form of tree that grows flat along the ground, and it's because it gets beaten down and battered down in crevices and along rocks by avalanches and snow slides. Sorry about that. Snow slides. I guess that's what an avalanche is, isn't it? Anyway, they tend to grow in those positions because that's the way nature bashes them around to be in that position. So I am going to work with some trees for a while to see how easy or difficult it is to exploit that style. First thing I do when I get these trees, I take them out of the container. This is it. And I take all of the crud and crap and junk from within it. Now, that can get to be kind of hairy to do because all of that stuff hangs up inside, and as you can see, it has a tendency to kill off growth. We've got to go in there and thin that out. We've got to remove a lot of this stuff in here just to see what you've got as far as the trunk is concerned. Now, let's make a first-class bonsai. Yeah, it will, because I'll make it into one by just, even if it takes 20 years. Is it going to be a great instant bonsai? Probably not. But I can get it on the road I can get it on the road to turning into a decent bonsai if I just take the time to take things seriously. This stage of the game, we have to open it up. Dead branches come first in the removal. This one's not dead, but it's never going anywhere. It's been sun deprived for so long. You have to be careful when you do this that you don't remove good stuff. It's better to remove less in the beginning and remove more later as you go down the road than it is to remove a whole bunch now and say, oh gee, I wish I kept that. You can't keep what you haven't got. That's called having your cake and eating it too. Just prune out this stuff. Now I know I've made a big deal about stubbing things, but these branches are already at a point where they're not going to do anything. They're not aligned or structured to a lifeline to the point that you remove this particular branch is going to wind up killing off part of the trunk. If it were bigger branches, yeah, you might have to worry about it. But I just go around at first and pick the junk out and pick out the dead branches. Here's a nice big one. It's got a that still isn't going to cause dieback because the branch is already not functioning. So the lifeline isn't functioning from that branch. It's what they call a sectored architecture. That these trees have a tendency to have portions of the trunk and the roots associated almost exclusively with certain parts and sections of the top of the tree. And you remove one either way, root or top, you have a tendency to kill the one above or below. You cut off too many roots in the wrong place, you can kill off the top of the tree because there's nothing to support it. And this is why I always try to do things when it comes to roots, to doing them evenly around the base of the tree, and not like some people have a tendency to do, and I've heard it recommended, well, why don't you just cut off half of it, like cutting off this. You know, you do that, and then you run the risk of losing half of your tree. You're going to cut it in half, cut it horizontally, which we may do with this tree as it goes down the road here. This is not going to be a short demo. It takes some time. You know, always take the time to do these things right, though. You can. Of course, the question arises, what makes me think I can do it right? Well, nothing actually. The fact that I do it at all I guess is all the justification that I need right now, because nobody else is doing it. I've seen some demos on the internet with Mugo pines, and you get people like Ryan Neal and Walter Paul and Salvador Liberace. People in Europe, they do a wonderful job of Mugo pines because they have such wonderful Mugo pines to deal with. They have the Amadores, but you don't find anybody working with the nursery stuff, except this stupid idiot that lives in Michigan. Oh, that would be me. And so you take what you get. You get what you take. I'm not sure how that works. But anyway, here we are. At some point we're going to be removing a lot of living growth out of this tree, because I think we want to put it to a place where we can do so. Now this tree, by the end of this coming weekend, will be in somebody's possession. This tree is going to be sold. So the value of it is going to depend on what I do with it. My dad used to always say a thing is only worth what you can get for it. So we'll see how that goes. But I've said it 100 times. If I've said it once, I love Mugo pines. When I was a kid growing up, we had moved from Salt Lake City to Marin County, California. The very first tree that my parents bought me when I was 15 at the time was a Mugo pine. I didn't know what I had, and I wish I still had that tree. But just like a lot of you out here that have had Mugo pines, I promptly killed it. I think it took a couple of weeks, but I didn't know what I was doing with the thing. Didn't know anything at all about it, but I hung in there and I kept working on it. It wasn't until I got out of the Army in 1967, got married in 1969, and moved to Michigan to go to school, started getting my life stable, that I started getting into Mugo pines. My point was with the Mugo is that it was easy for me to handle. It was easy to grow. I didn't have to babysit the thing so much. I could always be out with it and working on it and doing this and doing that, but it wasn't a real fussy tree that I had to worry about. Well, gee, are you watering it too much? It seemed to cooperate. I found it to be a tree like that all the way down the road. I hope you can see what I'm doing here. So anyway, after a few years, I started getting some of these to develop. My plans were, I wanted to have some Japanese white pine. You know, that's the goal of everybody who grows bonsais and the pines. Oh, you got to have Japanese white pine. Well, yeah, Japanese white pines are nice, but at the time they were as scarce as hen's teeth. So I couldn't find them. So I figured what I was going to do, I was going to grow these Mugos. And I figured that, well, if you can graft white pine onto Japanese black pine, why can't you graft white pine onto Mugo pine? So I was going to develop these really wonderful trunks and get good things working and going on with the tree. And then at some point I was going to graft in Japanese white pine up on the top. Now I'd seen Yoshimura do this in his book, that instead of grafting onto the base like most of the grafted pines are, he was grafting stuff up into the top, into the crown of the tree, so that he had the beautiful bark and stuff of the Japanese black pine all the way up to the top of the tree, but the Japanese white pine foliage was grafted in later. Well, I was thinking, gee, I think I'm going to do that. So after a few years of growing these Mugo pines like that, I started to realize, hey, this tree, in a lot of ways, in a lot of its character, looks a lot like the Japanese white pine in the way it grows. Why would I want to have something else? And I really fell in love with the tree.